Why not?
But like, what? Yeah, what is the reason?
Wasting water.
Really?
Like, whenever I make a drink for Christy, I've noticed that she doesn't drink the whole thing, so I'll like make half of it.
Make a drink? What do you mean, kind of make a drink?
Like
You don't make a drink.
Like if I make a coffee for her, if I pour her a drink, like a...
Yeah, well, I'm going to finish.
You don't have to do that for everybody, though. That's a lovely thing you do for Christy.
But, I mean, it was just like a puddle at the bottom of the...
You were in the desert for a few days, Link. If anyone needs extra water, you need extra water.
Welcome to Your Biscuits, the podcast where two lifelong friends talk about life for a long time. I'm Link.
And I'm Rhett. This week at the round table of dim lighting, we're going to be catching up with each other. I was out of the country.
Yes.
I haven't told you anything. I'm going to tell you everything.
You survived.
You
Peru.
You had your own experience.
Peruvian.
Out of the county, not necessarily out of the state or the country.
Yeah, I'm still recovering from Coachella.
I want to talk about what just happened, though. What just occurred moments before we started rolling. And that is, you asked me...
I was pouring my water. I had this carafe of water.
You asked me, would you want water? And I said, meh. I said something that sounded a little bit like yes and no at the same time.
You did.
My mouth stuck together. That's fine.
You're like, meh.
Yeah, but
I was like, yeah.
And I was like, then I was like, yeah. And then I didn't watch you. I didn't watch him pour it in. And then I look, and there is no more than a puddle of water in the bottom of my, like a fifth. Okay, realistically, a fifth full.
Like it was
like enough to wet your fingernail if you were to stick it in the bottom.
It might go to your first knuckle.
And I looked at it and I said, it's full now because I asked him to fill it up. But I looked at it and I said, what? Why'd you give me such a little amount of water? And he said, I don't like to waste water.
What? I don't like to waste water.
Well, first of all, you're assuming that I'm not going to drink all of it.
Yeah, I did.
But also, I understand that we live in a dry climate. I don't like, if somebody was like, I don't like to waste water, I would be like, oh, so you're the kind of person who has a setting on your irrigation system that doesn't turn on while it's raining, so that many, many gallons of water will be wasted.
I do have that.
Right. Yeah, that's great. But wasting water, the difference between 2 ounces of water and 10 ounces of water.
It adds up over time.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't add up. Because I'm going to drink it.
But I didn't think, I literally thought, I'm going to give him as much as I think he's going to want.
But what a weird way to live, is what I'm saying. It's just a weird way to live.
I was living empathetically, Rhett.
No, you weren't.
For Christy.
You're like somebody who went through the Depression who actually didn't go through the Depression.
I didn't.
You know what I'm saying? Like you grew up in the 80s in a time of plenty.
I didn't even really experience the 90s stock collapse or whatever that was. The housing implosion?
That wasn't the 90s. You mean 2008 financial crisis?
Yeah.
The 90s? The 90s were also great. We grew up in the times of plenty, man.
Yeah,
it's our kids who grew up in the times of the lean times.
But I know what's coming. And so,
well, I can respect that.
That top half of a mug of water that you gonna want one day, you're not gonna have.
But the thing is,
I'm gonna tell you, remember this moment.
But being hydrated is gonna be really important in the apocalypse. Like
you gotta.
This isn't too much. A cup of water is not a lot of water.
Here's the reason why I did it.
So taking a shower during the apocalypse, that might be a mistake.
I'm giving you what you need. I'm giving you what I thought you wanted, because when I get a drink for Christy, what I've noticed is that I'll find like a coffee mug, and I'll look in the coffee mug, and I gotta pour out some coffee first. Or even if I give her a little bit of my LaCroix or something, I'll notice later. Like if I give her a bottle of LaCroix, like when I have my little treat and I give her one.
A bottle?
I'll give her the whole bottle. And then
where are you getting bottles of LaCroix?
I mean, not LaCroix, Topo Chico.
Oh.
I'll notice it later, it's like half full. So I've learned, I'm just like, whenever
I'm not that kind of person.
I give her water or something, I give her half as much, because then when I pick it up later, it's empty or there's a little bit in the bottom.
Yeah, okay, listen.
And I gave you what I thought you needed.
Well, here's the thing.
Because I've never seen you drink water during a podcast.
What?
I thought about it. I was like, he doesn't actually want water. So
I drink whatever is in the cup. Usually it's tea, But water's fine.
But if it's water, you don't drink it all.
Wrong.
Okay. I thought I noticed that, but I guess
I'll finish
wrong.
it, and I might get more.
Well, I know that now I'm going to be wrong because you're going to prove
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that do what you're talking about. The leaving the sodas half. I mean, my kids.
I gave you more water
and
than
their
I
friends.
gave me once you filled it up. Look,
when my boy has friends over, and which is a lot,
they hit your cans,
and there's a lot of them,
and they drink half your.
I don't
cans.
know half of them half of the time,
and they only drink half your cans.
And they drink sometimes a third of the can,
yeah,
and there's just can't. I don't do that. I take offense at that. And I take offense that you think I'm one of those boys. I'm not one of those boys. I'm not like your wife or those boys.
What?
I finish my drinks.
I would be ready to give you more. If it turns out you needed more water, I reach down here, I'll grab it, I'll pour you some more.
Yeah, but that'll create an awkward moment on the podcast. I think it's more fitting to have a full glass of water.
Okay.
And then, you know what? Maybe as a spiritual practice, what you can do for your wife is if she doesn't finish things, you pour it out. You pour it out in memory of someone.
In memory of what my wife didn't finish.
Yeah.
This is in honor of, I won't pour it on the curb for the homies or anything.
You could do whatever you want.
You want me to walk out to my front curb and pour it out for the homies?
Here's a better question. What do you do with the extra coffee?
I pour it down the sink.
But what would you do?
I pour it in a cup, it accumulates, and I give it back to Christy days later.
But like, if it's Topo Chico, it's a set amount.
Oh, yeah. See, that's the thing. I don't offer her Topo Chicos anymore. Or she can swig mine a little bit.
That's gross. That's gross.
She's my wife.
Still gross.
Stay out of it. Stay out of it.
Backwash is still gross.
Listen, you've been to Peru, and all you want to talk about is how much I put in your glass. How many ways can you say you missed me? You know?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I love Peru. Let me talk about it.
Don't you wish I was there doing stuff like this the whole time in Peru, like giving you half a glass of water?
Oh, well, I'll say, I went with my son, my 16-year-old son, Shepherd, and I will say that 7 days of us being together alone was enough, we learned.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
And it turns out that 8 was too many, which it turned into 8 because of a flight.
That's right.
Mishap. Or turned into 9, I guess.
Ooh,
9.
Was that?
Because it was, no, 8.
So you had to add a day, and you had to move your flight. Was that stressful? I know you get stressed.
It was.
There's nothing like wanting to be back in your country when you can't get there.
I noticed something. First of all,
that
Shepherd and I, let me just say,
meaning.
Shepherd and I had a great time. We really do get along. But there's something about being with each other constantly, sharing a hotel room together, you know, for a full week, where the 47-year-oldness of the 47-year-old man and the 16-year-oldness of a 16-year-old boy, it wears thin after a while, and you have different priorities. And we had a great time. We connected as much as we've ever connected.
Well,
and then by the end, we were kind of like, yeah, we've had enough of each other.
That's healthy.
And
what was like a big pain point? Because you're reminding me of my weekend.
Well, 16-year-olds, I'll talk in generalities here. They're tough to wake up. They're tough to get going.
In generalities. Not anyone particular, but yeah, all of them.
Yeah, all of them. They're tough to wake up. They're tough to get going. And there was a lot of like, hey, we need to be leaving at this time. And there was a lot of like, hey, get up. Hey, get up. Get up. Get up. I'm not going to shake you out of this bed. Get up. You know.
In general.
Yeah, in general. This is just how they are. Not just my son. And
but what was he complaining about you? Did you receive any complaints?
Well, so one of our big things that we kept running up against was the fact that I was approaching this pretty systematically, which I will have like a system for certain things. We wanted to travel without checking any bags, because there's like transfers, and I was like, we're just going to go to Peru for a week. Like, let's just take a backpack and a carry-on. And so we have everything with us. That simplifies all the travel, which he was happy to do. But one of the things that I did is I was like, we're going to be in Peru. We're going to be. This is a little bit more of an adventure vacation because we're starting in Lima and then working our way to Machu Picchu. It's a lot of hiking and ziplining and horseback riding. It was an adventure vacation.
You used like all forms of transit. That's how you got from Lima to
yep on a zip line.
A zip line and laying on a horse.
And so what I did before we left, because I knew that Shepard was not going to do this, is I was like, hey, let's go to REI and I'm going to equip you. What does REI stand for?
Recreational Equipment
International? I'm going to recreationally equip you for an international trip. I'm going to REI you.
Pretty sure that's not it, but yeah.
Maybe it's Recreational Equipment Incorporated?
You are correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not as fun, though.
But I recreationally equip him with like technical clothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, you need some hiking pants. They're light. They're quick dry. You need a hiking shirt. Mm-hmm. You need some t-shirts, like a Viore kind of like t-shirt.
So you wanted him to cosplay as you going to Peru?
No. I knew he was going to bring all his clothes. And I was like,
big baggy jeans.
Yes. And small t-shirts.
Yeah.
And multiple chains that connect different parts of his body to other parts of his body. And his wallet and things. And I knew he was going to bring all that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
But I was like, and I said, I'll pack it for you.
Okay.
No, I said, because.
So not only does he not care for it, he doesn't really know it exists or is in his bag.
Well, no. He went with me to REI as I equipped him. And he would look at it and he'd be like, And I could tell there was a little hesitation.
Yeah, he's not really into Rick Steves' core. You know what I'm saying?
But when you're,
you know what I'm saying?
What I fail to understand is that a 16-year-old is like, I'm getting pictured, like we're going to go to Machu Picchu and there's pictures that are being taken.
Yeah.
And Dad is going to be dressed like Rick Steves.
I cannot dress
and I don't
like
want
that.
to look like Rick Steves. I want to look cool so that I'm dressed the way that I want to.
For the gram or the
I didn't really know. Like
days.
I thought that Machu Picchu, especially the second day, which was supposed to be this longer, more intense hike, that got canceled because of rain. But so we basically just went back to Machu Picchu 2 days in a row. He did end up wearing the technical clothing for like 1 day or something like that. But and it's funny because.
But was he making fun of you for it? Was he giving you a hard time?
It wasn't making fun of me as much as he was just basically being like, Dad, I don't think I think I can wear these big jeans to Machu Picchu. I think it's okay. And we would have these like little arguments about it.
Yeah.
And eventually I was just like, why do I care?
Yeah.
Why do I care? Why am I fighting this battle? Let him.
Yeah.
Let him.
Yeah, you're supposed to be learning that lesson.
It's just tough to apply.
Can I tell you my version of that for the much shorter weekend going to Coachella with Lincoln? So Lincoln drove up from San Diego. We each had like what could be a 2.5 hour drive or it could be a 6 hour drive. That's how it is when you're trying to go to like Indio or Joshua Tree or any of that stuff. So we've learned that lesson. I left Thursday and then I camped. Like I decided I wanted the full Coachella experience, and they have these, but I didn't want to do the full like camp in a tent or camp in a tent beside a car. So I camped in a Sprinter van, which was parked by a company that parked like 15 of them in an area that's only for those people. So it's a little nicer. So I stayed in. It had a bed. It had a sink with running water. It had an air conditioning unit in the driver's seat because it was 100 degrees every day.
Like in the window?
No, in the driver's seat. Like it was a huge unit. It looked like a droid. Like you would have it in your house in a room to like AC a house.
Duct that
and
went
then
out
a duct
the window.
that went out the window. And then we had shade and a cooler and a refrigerator. So it was like, it was glamping and it was right on the edge. But I went Thursday to get in there. I was there Thursday. Then he showed up Friday. So we saw the festival Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then we got to go back and see Posty. And then he had to leave because he had exams Monday morning. So he didn't actually get to stay for that show. But so then I stayed backstage and hung out and had a good time with the people that I know back there. And I met Shabuzi.
Oh.
I'll just throw that in there. Shabuzi is a large guy. I'd love to see you two wrestle.
Well, he's real tall?
He's real tall.
Huh.
But he's bigger than you, and he'd beat your ass.
Well, you don't have to be tall to out wrestle me.
No, but I'd like to see someone that big just like totally break you in half. And I'm nominating Shabuzi, which you know how I am. I was this close to proposing that. I got a friend. He's my best friend since first grade. He's not here.
Yeah, you probably Shabuzi.
But I really want you to wrestle him. Can we? I didn't say any of that. But
what did you say to Shabuzi?
That
Pour me up another shot of whiskey.
I said he was asking Post about like how it sounded and stuff, and I don't know. He said he sounded good, but I actually don't know if he heard his set. But I did. So I stepped in and I was like, I was back at this point. My vantage point was from this place, and you sounded great. I was a little further away. I hope he wasn't offended. He was happy to hear some positive feedback.
What did he say back to you?
I think he said, I need to move around here so I can talk to Post. In like the nicest way possible. But Lincoln was there. Lincoln met the kid Leroy, which was a big thrill for him because he's always been told that he looks like him. And like when he had longer hair, they both had the longer hair, and he like was him for Halloween one year, many years ago. So it was like, and he's a fan, so it was like cool to meet him. They both have a haircut now, and they still kind of look the same, except he's Australian.
Did he show him the picture from Halloween?
He looked for it but couldn't find it.
Oh.
So it was one of those things. But he wasn't there talking to him looking for it. He went away, couldn't find it. Yeah. So he's learned from the best in how to interact with, top tier celebs.
Yep. I wish him well.
And he was observing a lot of that. But back to the thing about like you and Shepard interacting with each other. The things that Lincoln ended up pointing out. First of all, Lincoln is a model middle child. I don't think he knows how to complain. When it's never heard, you learn never to do it, I guess. So he's like a quintessential middle child like that. So even when it's us, it's like super chill, and he's just like, the only thing is he waking him up's a little bit fraught.
Right.
Because you don't have to do it once. You have to keep doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Lincoln is 20, but that still happens.
It takes a while to grow out of it.
But let me tell you, by day 3, I was so exhausted that wasn't a problem. We were both just like conked down in this van, and like knowing that it's 100 degrees on the other side of that window.
And aren't you like hearing all
sound
the bass
checks
like going through?
They don't open the gates until 1 in the afternoon, and then like one day we didn't show up until 5, and then we're going until like the earliest night we went to bed was 2.
Yeah,
and then I think 2 nights ago it was 4. But when we got into bed, the first night that he was there, it was like there's actually plenty of room for us to both sleep on opposite sides of the van, like in the same bed. And he likes to cram himself in a corner. That's what he said. His bed at home has always had a corner that he would like shove his face into, and his room at college is in a corner, and he like so like literally it's like he's cowering in the corner sleeping. That's like his habit. He likes to sleep in a corner.
Wow, okay.
But he was in bed first. I was like, damn, you're in the corner. And he was like, this is how I sleep. He was like already falling asleep. And then I get in bed and I hear him just laughing. He's just laughing. And I'm like, I didn't say anything. And then a few seconds later, he's laughing again. And I'm like, what are you laughing at? He was like, all the noises you're making. Like, yeah. What you're like, you're grunting, and you're like, you're
just getting ready for bed.
You're almost moaning, but they're not long enough. They're just grunts. And I was like, well, yeah, they're dad grunts. It's like
you getting ready for bed is probably registered as a workout on your Oura ring.
just like,
Yeah.
and then I was so sore. I mean, your homeboy had taken over 30,000 steps that day.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And that doesn't count when I was on the bike. I'll have to come back to that story. If we had time, I'll tell you the bike story.
Okay.
But yeah, he was making fun of me for that. And that was, and then hours earlier we made it to the Lady Gaga show. But this was after probably 25,000 steps. And like, I'm standing out there and on the grass. We weren't too close. We had the ability to get pretty close. But for this, we started out in the back on the grass, and it was still in the crowd. And he looks over at me, and he's like, I looked over, and I was like, where's Dad? He's gone. And then he said, I looked down, and you were completely doubled over. You were standing, but you were completely doubled over. It was like you were doing a toe touch. It was like you had folded yourself in half, and your face was in your own crotch. And I was like, yeah, I was stretching. And he was like, well, people noticed.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
I was like, well, I couldn't help it. And then if I wasn't just bent over, like trying to stretch the lower back, then I was trying. Once you do that, you're like, okay, now I got to go into a deep squat. And now I got to throw a leg out. Like
there's a place for this. It's not in the crowd.
And
I'm with Lincoln on this.
I eventually ended up, he was making fun of me for that.
Public stretching.
Public stretching
is a no-go, especially at a music festival.
And but I was hurting so bad. I ended up sitting down. And then once you sit down in a crowd of people who are standing for one of the most historic performances in the history of Coachella, some people are arguing. Like the theatrics involved.
People are saying.
In Lady Gaga's. But yeah, they're not talking about my performance, hers.
Yeah.
My performance was pretty stellar. It ended up on my ass in the grass, not seeing any of it. But I would look around and I could see through legs, and there would be a couple of people seated. And they were of the
older,
aged variety like me. So there was...
You had to be one of the older people there.
Every time I stood up, Lady Gaga was being carried by groups of people on her back in different places on stage, and she was always wearing a different outfit. Sometimes her outfit would have like gloves with like fingers that were like 2 feet long. Sometimes she would be buried in a thing of desert dirt next to a skeleton, and I found out that it was an overhead shot, and she was laying down, and it was like she was either being buried or coming out of the desert. And she was doing this choreographed dance routine.
In the dirt?
In the dirt with a skeleton. She did a lot of stuff.
And you sat down for this?
2 skeletons. Well, no, that's when I was standing up. And I was like, man, every time I stand up, it's a treat.
I think I would have stood up more.
I wanted to so bad.
You needed that little stool that we had
where
you stand and sit at the same time.
Lincoln told, he was like, you'd be one of those guys that have one of those stools that goes inside of your pants. And I was like, oh, I've done that.
Oh, yeah, see, yeah.
I've done that on the show.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was making fun of me. I think I was an added form of, I was like, do I embarrass you? He was like, what?
No, yes.
It's not that, Dad. It's amusing. It's amusing, Dad.
Yeah, yeah. He is.
But I knew what he meant.
He's not conflict oriented, so he's not going to tell you that you're embarrassed.
That in his way, yes, he did tell me. And in a way, it kind of hurt more. You know.
Good.
We had a really good time though.
Okay, well. Yeah, Shepard and I had as good of a time, and in fact, I told him a couple of times, I was like, Shepard, you're really easy. Like, you're easy to hang out with. It was just the 16-year-oldness of it all and the sharing the space, sharing the bathroom, that by the end of a week, you're kind of like, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready to live with my wife again. You know?
Did you shower in a trailer with 20 other people?
No.
I did that.
Yeah, but I had a week.
That's true.
Okay, incredible trip. I love Peru. I'm going to talk about some of the highlights.
Can you give a plug for Rainn Wilson on Last Meals first?
Oh, yes. Rainn Wilson is on Last Meals, the preeminent interview series on YouTube.
Okay. Josh gets existential with Rain. I guarantee you, he's ready. Rain is ready to go there.
Oh yeah, he loves talking about existential stuff. That's his whole deal.
So I think it's a good one.
Check it out on the Mythical Kitchen channel. There are so many things we keep meaning to get around to. Trying a new recipe, cleaning out that overstuffed closet, learning to play guitar.
Oh.
Well, I've got around to that.
Not me.
And while those things can wait, there's one thing that shouldn't: life insurance.
Yeah, life insurance is one of those things that feels easy to put off, but it can make a huge difference for your family. And with Select Quote, it's easier and more affordable than you might think to get the right policy for you.
Select Quote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience helping over 2 million customers find more than $700 billion in coverage.
Unlike other companies that sell one-size-fits-all plans, Select Quote's licensed agents work with you to tailor a policy that fits your life in as little as 15 minutes.
Got a pre-existing condition? No problem. Whether it's high blood pressure, diabetes, even heart disease, Select Quote partners with carriers that can help.
And if you're in good health, they even offer same-day coverage with no medical exam required. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/ear.
Go to selectquote.com/ear today to get started. That's selectquote.com/ear.
You know, as we have grown our team here at Mythical, the thing is, when you decide to add somebody, it's when you need them. So hiring quickly is very important.
And when it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast.
With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster.
And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs.
If your business is anything like ours, things are always changing, and sometimes you need to fill a role fast, and Indeed can help you get the top candidates for the job.
Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there are no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results.
There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. You can get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ears.
Just go to Indeed.com/ears right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast.
Indeed.com/ears with an S. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need.
Let's see. The first thing, so I'll just kind of give you the overview of what we did, and I'm just gonna talk about some of the highlights. So again, I asked Shepard over a year ago, where do you want to go on your spring break when you're 16? Because the tradition that I tried to start with Locke and was COVIDed out of that opportunity was, hey, when you're 16, we'll do a father-son trip anywhere in the world that you want to go. Locke and I were going to go to Tokyo, and it didn't happen. We made up for it with 2 cross-country trips. Shepard said Machu Picchu. And I asked him, when we were on the trip, I was like, you know what, why did you? I thought you would have said something like, well, some place where we could go scuba dive.
Yeah.
Because he had gotten, he's an advanced scuba diver now. I thought maybe we'd go to Egypt and like go to the Red Sea or something.
Yeah.
And he said that, I think they had been talking, somebody had been like talking about it or learning about it someplace, and it just sounded intriguing. And he was like, why not? We've never been to South America. I was like, okay, I've never been to South America. I'm glad we're here. So you start in Lima, which is the capital, and then you spent basically a day there kind of exploring the city, and then got on a plane to Cusco, which is sort of like the headquarters of it was like basically where the Incan Empire was headquartered back in the day, where these 4 areas kind of met.
Okay.
And I think the altitude is like 10,000 feet or something. Crazy.
Oh, well, that takes some adjustment.
When you go from sea level in Lima to that altitude, in one day. And we came down a little bit. We ended up staying in the Sacred Valley area, which was still like 8,500 feet, I think. I had a horrible headache that first day. I was just, I was not, and they were like, they give you like the afternoon to, like, we didn't plan anything in our itinerary for the afternoon. It was like, fly up there, go hang out and get acclimated to the altitude. And boy, I needed it. Shepard was fine. He was fine. He had no issues. Had a crazy headache. But then the first activity was the next day was going to be ziplining. Again, I told the person who helped us plan this trip, got a 16-year-old son. We want to do some adventure stuff. And so I just see ziplining. And first of all, if you don't know, I'm very scared of heights. And I always think when I'm on like a zip line or I've like went paragliding one time, I always just think that it's going to break on me. I know that statistically speaking, this is an irrational fear, but it's going to break on somebody somewhere in the world at some point, and it's probably going to be the big guy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just scared of heights. I've been scared of heights for my entire adult life.
Because that's where your head's at.
Right. But then we get into the car with this guy who's taking us to the zipline thing, and he's like, "Have you climbed before?"
Have you climbed?
And I'm like, we're ziplining. Yeah, we're doing ziplining, right? He says, "Well, we have to climb to get to the zip lines." And I'm like,
I know where you went. Okay, yes, continue.
And then I look at the itinerary and it says Via Ferrata and ziplining.
Via Ferrata, that's the word. I know what that means.
I don't know what it literally means, but what it practically means is that you basically have a line. So there's this metal line that goes up the side of a mountain, and you just are carabinered into it as you climb the mountain. Now, I will say that we were on what is considered a beginner route because it had like rebar that had been drilled into like steps that had been drilled into the mountain. But like a ladder, straight hundreds of feet up.
What? Dude, I know you had.
And I got there and I was like,
you had to be shitting a brick. I know you.
I look at it.
I mean, I would have been scared, but
and I'm like
excited.
First of all, I told Shepard, I was like, well, if I had known that this is what we were doing, if I had known this is what this was, I would have said no. But you know me, I'm not a chump.
Oh, is that what it is?
And so I was like, I'm going to be almost shitting the entire time, but I'm going to do this because Shepard, first of all, Shepard he's a rock climber. He loves rock climbing. He's a member of a rock climbing gym and he's really good at it and he's not scared of heights and he's fast or whatever, okay? And so I knew that he was going to love this. So, and then there was a guy, there's always like somebody there's like, hey, I'm a professional photographer and I'll take your pictures for a fee. And because I was like, I'm not going to break my camera out on this sheer cliff. I mean, looking up at this mountain, I was just like, I cannot believe I'm about to do this. Like, remember the time at the Central Florida Zoo, we just did the ropes course and I was like shaking the whole time? I hate it. I'm so scared of heights.
15 feet off the ground.
Yeah. And so I'm going to show you some pictures.
Because the rebar, it's like a U-shaped piece of rebar that's like both ends of it are put into the thing, and then it's just a step, right?
Well, here's a picture. So,
yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
This picture doesn't really do it. This is sort of at the beginning, right? We're probably like 60 feet off the ground at this point, and as you can see, I'm not doing great, and I'm holding on with two hands, and I have 2 feet on the same thing, and I'm carabinered in here.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Shepard is way above me. So we climbed for like an hour and a half to get to the place where I'll show you the place that we went.
How many people are with you? Is it just the two of y'all and a guide?
It's just the two of us and a guide and the photographer, but there's other groups of people who look like they know what they're doing, who are like a family like that went ahead of us, and then, but that was behind us, and then there was, I will say, I did catch up with these two ladies who were, they were probably my age or older. and I ended up passing them. And I thought I was going so slow because I was like I never looked down.
Never?
Never. I was like, I'm just not gonna look down. I don't want to know how high I am right now.
I mean, you gotta look down. You gotta look out at least.
But
Did you look out?
I looked out. Yeah. Now we got to this one place.
Beautiful.
Where
wow.
it's two lines. Like, can you see that? Like, can you see what's happening here? My feet are on this thing, and I'm holding onto this other bar, and it's a straight 200-foot drop below me.
You're not against the rock.
No, I'm just out there holding on to the thing. Now I'm strapped into it, but when I started going out on this thing, I thought what was going to happen is I was going to do that thing when you get in the middle and you start shaking and you can't keep going.
And that's when you bring it down. Big man brings it down.
And I get out there and I'm like, okay, I looked at my Oura Ring data and my heart rate was at 150 the whole time. But I was joking with Shepard, and I was like, next time I ask you to clean your room, I was just basically finding ways to be funny and relax myself. But then I would get out here and he'd be like, hey, stop, and he would get a picture, and so.
Yeah, there was no posing. There was just gripping for dear life.
There was a couple of times where I did do this, where he would say, can you, and this is towards the second half where this is sheer face, man.
Yeah.
I know that you're actually, because you're strapped in and you've got 2 points of contact, you're not
if
really.
If you fall, though, it's not going to feel good. You're gonna be strung, you're going to fall down the cliff face on the cable that you're attached to.
Oh, it's going to hurt. It's going to probably get you one of your balls or something in that harness. I was worried about that the whole time too. But, I was willing to do that.
He told you to let go. And
I would be, if I felt like I had a good grip and everything, I was willing to do it. But I don't have a picture of Shepard doing this, but Shepard would lean back, I'm still kind of.
What he had in mind was more of a fabulous pose where you inflate your body out.
I'm not willing to do that. There's Shepard. He would go ahead of me, and then we'd have to tell him to slow down.
Now can I just tell you that that shirt and those pants that's fire right there. Right?
Yeah, see, I look like somebody who knew what he was going to be doing that day, even though I didn't. I thought I was going to be ziplining. That's technical clothing from REI Link.
Does
moisture wicking.
Shepard's not even wearing gloves.
Well, he took them off for this picture. He's got them strapped right there. But we hiked to this thing, which was they serve you lunch at a glass thing that is suspended on the side of the mountain.
Oh God!
And let me show you. I'll show you the picture because this guy actually didn't get the picture, but I got a picture of the guys cooking in there, and they there's these chefs cooking on the side of the mountain. Where are they? Here we go.
Did you get good and drunk up there? And then
no, they offered. So these are the guys cooking on the side of the rock right there. This is the inside of that thing.
Oh wow!
And
that's crazy.
We had alpaca.
You ate alpaca?
Yeah.
What?
Whoa!
I thought you were supposed to just pet those things.
Well, I pet an alpaca, and then the next day I ate an alpaca.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
That's the way hey, when in Peru, I also ate guinea pig. Okay, let's talk about that.
How did it taste?
I'm not going to show you the picture of the guinea pig because, I don't want to offend anybody's sensibilities. I'll show it to you.
Okay.
Because they know that you've got people from other places coming in, and they want to try cuy is what is the Peruvian name. This is in their culture. They've eaten it for thousands of years, hundreds of years, whatever. And but when it's
got the name pig in it.
At this certain restaurant, they dress it up in a hat and bring it to you with a Peruvian alpaca cap on it, and then you get all the pictures with it.
Is sitting up like a prairie dog?
Yeah, sitting up,
coming out. That's a bit much.
Fully intact. That's why I'm not going to show it to you. I'm showing it to Link.
It's like a deep fried prairie dog.
And then
picking up there.
And then
You hungry?
Then they take it.
Take my hat off first.
They cut it up for you, and then they give it to you to eat in pieces.
Yeah.
And I would just say it tastes like rabbit, and I don't need it again. I had the experience, and I did the Peruvian thing, and.
But so you didn't have to climb back down from it. You ziplined from this height?
No, I had to climb more after this.
What?
And then the ziplining pictures just look like two dudes ziplining, so there's no reason to see those. But it's like, you've seen that before.
Yeah, but from that height, how there must have been a lot of ziplining down.
Less than you would think.
Okay.
Like 6 of them?
Wow. Because you're not as much of you're afraid of ziplining, but not as much. But this might be the most daring thing you've ever done.
Well, I told Shepard, I was like, I think this might be the most physically. It might be the most daring thing I've ever done. I don't know the word that I used, but like the most challenging thing the physically challenging thing that I've done. Because it's not like first of all, it was kind of hard. It's hard to climb that many steps at that altitude.
Yeah.
But also, when your heart is beating that fast the entire time, like you're working out really hard, and I was just like, man, I'm glad I don't have like a hurt knee or my back is because you get up there and like, what would you do? So
just take the slide down.
I was very happy having done it.
Take the Rick Steves,
I was proud of myself. Shepard was proud of me. I was proud of Shepard because Shepard just completely embraces every single thing without any hesitation at all. So he's very easy to travel with in that regard. Cool. And then the next day we took the train to Machu Picchu. We get on the train. There's a family there. Mom, dad, adultish daughter, like 20, whatever.
Okay.
And the dad says, we had our suitcases, and he was like, there's a storage thing over here, and he like shows it to me, and then I sit down, and he said, also you can, it was like a dinner train almost kind of thing, like with tables, and you're facing, like 4 people facing a table.
Okay.
And he was like, you can move this. If you're a big guy like me, you can move this. And I was like, man, I'd be lost without you. I'm glad you're here. And I was like, where are y'all from? And he's like, we live in Fuquay, Varina, North Carolina.
Nuh-uh. Are you serious?
Yeah.
He didn't know who you are?
No.
The Fuquayites didn't know who you were?
Well, he's a retired magistrate from New York City.
Okay.
Who retired to Fuquay 2 years ago.
Because if you don't know, Fuquay is the town that we both lived in. Your wife, Jessie.
My wife was born there.
Grew up there.
And
it's like just down the road from Lillington. Our second studio was in Fuquay, and that's where we moved from when we moved to LA.
Crazy small world moment. Now, I saw them talking, and the daughter was telling them who I was. So she did know.
Okay, good.
At least was somewhat familiar. So it wasn't a complete whiff, you know.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But I talked to them for a while, and then ended up seeing them on the train back, and then they stayed at the same hotel in Cusco. Like we saw each other like 3 times.
That's crazy.
So shout out to Craig and his family from Fuquay. And okay, so Machu Picchu, you've seen the pictures. You don't need to see mine. It's incredible. I think maybe the most beautiful place I've ever been. Definitely.
Really?
In terms of, you've got the, it as itself is incredible, and the history of it and like why it's there and what it represents is all incredible. But the setting, I don't think a lot of people understand that it's like at the top of a sheer mountain. I will show you, I'll show you this is what it looks like, of course. This is a picture I took. But
it's like terraced area that, I guess that's...
The terraces were farmed, and then this was where they lived. But let me just show you the pictures I got from up there, just to give you an idea of like how high you are and how absolutely amazing the environment is. Like this, it's just absolutely crazy. Like, these pictures are pretty good at capturing it, but
sheer green
absolutely
mountains.
Nothing like being there. And like the clouds like rolling in and out. We got one day in the rain where we got to actually see all the drainage systems working. The drainage systems that the Incans built when they built it.
Oh, are still functional.
It's all still functioning, and like gutters and shit, and all the water's going everywhere. And then the next day it was sunny, so we got both, and we saw two different routes, and it was incredible.
So was there a temple there, an Incan?
Yeah. So what this was is, first of all, I'll talk a little bit more about this in a second, because I've been reading this book. I think it's called The Last of the Incans, which is basically the history of the end of the Incan Empire and the beginning of like the Spanish colonization.
Okay.
It's a very long book, so I've still got a ways to go, but I've read enough to like kind of understand the context of the area that I was going to. And the Incans were like the last like indigenous empire. And so they were actually around like after the year, I don't know exactly when it started, but like this is like 1,000 years ago. This is not like 3,000 years ago. This is, they were in power when the Spanish showed up in the early 1500s.
Okay.
So like, 500 years ago or so. And I think they had been around for a few hundred years before that, kind of expanding their empire. So Machu Picchu was, which means old peak. That's the old mountain. That's the shorter mountain that they're on. What they would do is they would go up there and they would basically take the granite that was in the mountain, and they don't know exactly how they did it, because it's kind of remarkable. Some of these rocks are just massive. And so it got some of like the mystery of like how the pyramids were built kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. It's like there's some theories, and there's like these little wheels. They have like little rock wheels and stuff that are still there. They showed us one of them for like rolling the rocks and stuff. But these massive pieces of granite would create this society where they believe, I don't know how, I can't remember the number, but it's like less than, I think, 1,000 people like would have lived at this spot, and they were all basically the elite.
Okay.
So you got the emperor who has his house. You've got the queen who's got her house, separate houses.
Well, okay.
Yeah, sometimes it works. Sometimes it works. And you got the temple. There was multiple temples. There was like a temple of the sun and a temple of the moon, which is around the mountain, which we couldn't go to because of the path was out. But multiple little temple areas, and then like places where people stayed, places where the workers stayed, places where they stored farm equipment, and they kind of took us around all that.
And so they've archaeologically like exposed some of this stuff?
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy because I think it's 1911. This guy, Hiram Bingham, I think is his name, American dude, is like down there, and there's all these rumors about lost cities and stuff like that. And like the local people kind of know, but it still hasn't been discovered. And by discovered, like discovered by Westerners, Yeah. And he basically finds it one day, like hiking up there with some other people, finds it, and it's completely covered in vegetation. So over the next couple of years, they come back and they rip all the vegetation off. And so the reason it's so like clean and exposed and just grass is because they came back and ripped everything off of it, all the vegetation that had grown over it. It was like really like a lost city would like vegetate. You could barely see anything. Uh-huh. This is just 1911.
Yeah.
So it's very recent. And then there's a couple of places where they started to like restore it in some places where they would like put a thatch roof on it. Like you can kind of see a couple of these places where... Actually, I don't have it in this picture, but there's a place where like they've got the thatch roof sort of recreated.
And then do they allow you to walk around all of this, or is
no?
It like cordoned off?
There's certain places you can walk and certain places you can't. But you basically get to see,
because I don't see people in the pictures that you're taking.
Well, yeah, they're in there. There.
Okay,
yeah, so you can walk around. You can walk around a lot of it, enough to like get a complete idea of what it is. And then there's like guys working on these walls, and basically I was like, what are those guys doing? He was like, they're taking the vegetation out between the rocks because that will cause it to split. So they can do that, but it's now like a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So like there's different laws about it now. So they can keep replacing the thatch roof on the place. There's the thatch roof right there. on the places that they have done it, but they can't do anything else, and they can't build anything else. So you have to keep it exactly the same once it becomes that World Heritage Site. However, right there where you see that in the middle of this open field, right? There's this like little, what that is this panel of grass on it's like a panel of wood with grass on top of it. And I was asking our guide like what it was, and he said,
looks like a stage.
In 1980 something, or maybe it was 2000s, I can't remember when it was, the King of Spain was coming to it. And there was this giant rock that was right in the middle of that field that had been there, since the Incans were there. And they were like, well, he needs to land his helicopter there. So they took the rock and buried it so he could land his helicopter. Like, why don't you just take the bus like everybody else up to the thing? And so they had like he showed me pictures of like the guy landing and stuff. And then I was like, well, now that he's gone, why can't they bring the rock back out? He says, well, when they buried it, like the rock got compromised or whatever, so now they just have to leave it buried.
That's a shame.
But
What's funny about that?
This was super. Like when we walked around the corner to come in and I saw it, like I got like misty eyed. It was like, this is absolutely incredible, especially because I'd been reading about the history of it and kind of knew enough to understand the context. But okay, more pictures I got to show you. And then I want to talk a little bit about something I learned about the history. So one of my favorite parts of the entire trip was the dogs of Peru.
Okay.
So I noticed there was a lot of dogs, not as many around Lima, which is more of like a modernized city. But once we got into the country and we got into Cusco and we got into Urubamba and like the Sacred Valley, there's just dogs everywhere. And so then I'm asking,
packs of dogs or just lounging dogs?
So I started asking, so there would be some like sleeping outside of a store, there would be some walking down the street, no collars or anything. And so I start talking to our guide and he's like, yeah, we have lots of stray dogs, but they're part of the culture and they're cared for and they're fed. And so I was like, I've got my little camera with me, my Fuji camera. I'm start taking pictures. I took like over 80 pictures of dogs. I'm going to show you some of the best ones.
Okay.
Because this is going to be one of my Instagram posts that will come up. No, because I mean, they're well fed by everyone.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's absolutely.
And they're all like pets. They're like neighborhood pets.
So like this one's at Machu Picchu, just in the restaurant at Machu Picchu, just waiting for this woman to feed him, right? This one is a hairless Peruvian dog. I'll show you some more of these, but it is a black dog, all black skin, no hair, and the only hair it has is an orange mohawk.
What?
And that's a Peruvian hairless dog.
Yes.
That there are multiple ones everywhere. Now it's an ugly dog, but ugly in a good way. I'll show you some more of those. But this is basically every coffee shop, every restaurant has a dog that is sleeping here, and it's not like owned by the coffee shop. This dog will also be like down the street later, like getting food from somebody and then coming back.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the ones that was at Machu Picchu. I don't have actually, I'll show you this one.
Do you pet them?
Me and Shepard petted them, yes. But like in Machu Picchu right here, this one, so you got 5 dogs right there.
Those are some big dogs. That's like a...
No, this dog's a lot smaller than you think it is. It's not that one. This dog's like Barber size. It's just I'm very close to it.
Oh.
But these dogs, every single day, they come from Agua Caliente, which is the city, Machu Picchu Pueblo at the bottom there. They climb up the trail to meet the tourists and basically hang out with the tourists all day and then go back and they're like a pack. And they're just like up there sleeping. But in fact, that's the same dog. You can see that it's small. Again,
look at the cute dogs. They're all cute.
They're all cute, and
they're all taken care of.
They're so smart because they understand the traffic laws or the traffic suggestions is what I would say they are in Peru.
Okay,
but like the number of, if we let Barbara and Sean out in the city, they would die. They don't understand cars and they don't
human culture.
These dogs are like completely on their own, but also completely attached and dependent on the humans around them. but like they're just walking around and you don't see any roadkill. Like they're not getting run over because all the ones that got run over a long time ago. And now it's just a bunch of smart dogs that know to like wait with everybody, then cross the street. They're like walking down and a bus is like coming and the bus driver doesn't even slow down and the dog just gets out of the way at the last second. Like it's just part of the way that it is. This one's chilling out. Okay, this is another. So
this one's got an outfit.
A lot of the Peruvian ones have sweaters on because they don't have hair, so they give them sweaters. This one is dressed like a dragon.
That's great.
This one's got an outfit on as well, and this is the same one. This woman she had the dog, and I was like, "Can I get your picture with this dog?"
She's happy to do it.
Oh yeah. This one, if you zoom in, you can see it's underbite. Look at this underbite.
Like an Ewok.
Look at the underbite.
It's crazy. So
this is a good picture of a Peruvian dog.
Oh, yeah.
With that orange mohawk. That's a Peruvian dog that's like mixed with something else. So it's got like the white head and the white feet, and then it's completely hairless everywhere else.
So strange.
And this is just like, they're just chilling out. Then we went horseback riding and there's just dogs out there in the field.
Living it up.
Just sleeping everywhere.
Being taken care of. I mean, you can go to other places in the world and
I got some cat pictures.
This is true for cats. There's more cats.
In Lima, there were more stray cats and the dogs were on leashes because it's a little bit more like modernized. And so everybody's got their dog on a leash and the cats are everywhere. Just everywhere.
Uh-huh. You didn't like that as much.
No, I didn't. But I was like, I might put a cat picture in my post. I don't know. I haven't made a decision. You can put 20 pictures in a carousel.
You put one cat picture, but you can put that one because there's a dog in a mural in the background.
I was talking to Stevie about this because I showed her these pictures. She went
her family.
She went with Cassie and her family like 2019, and I told her, I was like, let me show you the pictures of the dogs, and she was like, Cassie insisted on petting all of them. And I was like, we pet all of them too. But like Stevie's a little bit of a germaphobe.
Yeah.
So she did not like the idea of touching these dogs, which again, they're just outside all day walking around. They're not bathed. They're not the cleanest dogs. But they didn't really stink. And then at least in Machu Picchu Pueblo, all the animals were spayed and neutered by the government like a year ago.
That's good.
And he said that you can take any of them home that you want. Like you just file with the government and you can take one home with you because they're all stray dogs. Yeah.
Jenna, that's what you're going back to Peru. You've been
to Peru?
I've
never been. It's been on my list since I was in second grade.
And you're thinking you want to bring back a stray dog?
A hairless dog with a mohawk? Yes.
Well, the fact is like it would be like they would be the best dogs because they're so smart and they just understand everything, and they would come back and they'd be like this. They would be like, this is the life. I got to be inside.
Yeah, they have a sense of gratitude.
Yes, they would love it. They
seem to be pretty happy though.
No, they are. They are. So okay. But one of the things, so I want to tell you this story from the book that I'm reading.
Okay.
Because I kind of knew, you know bits and pieces of this stuff, but then when you kind of really acquaint yourself with it, and then you go to a place like this, the gravity of it really hits you. So, reading this book, Last of the Incas, and, we're in Lima, and they're in the middle of the square, there's a statue of this man, Francisco Pizarro, Spanish conquistador, who basically founded Lima. And I was like, I haven't been reading about this guy. I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
Trigger warning. This is a rough story. But this is what happened. So,
a war story.
Yeah. So you've got these guys. So there was a treaty that was passed. I can't remember the name of the treaty. Like, I always want to say it's tortillas, but it's not that. It's something like that. The Treaty of Tortillas. It's like something that sounds like that. And it was a treaty between the Spanish and the Portuguese kingdoms, that basically said everything east of this line, Portugal owns. And it was mostly like Asia and Africa, but also Brazil. And then everything west of that line, Spanish would own. And that's why the Spanish owned basically, that's why they got the Americas originally.
Okay.
And that's why you got people speaking Spanish on western side of South America and Portuguese on the eastern side of South America.
Ah.
But the way that it worked is like, the way they thought about it was that God had given authority to the Pope, who had given authority to the king, who gives authority to the conquistadors to basically go and claim this land for Spain. It was, it was imperialism, colonialism. It's the way that they did things. And of course, they show up in Peru, and we're basically at like the height of the Incan Empire. Like the Incan Empire had expanded to 10 million people. And only like 100,000 of them were like Incan, like actual, of the Incan descent. But the Incans had kind of done their own conquering of basically everyone on the western side of South America, all the way down to Chile, up to Ecuador, I think, or Bolivia. I can't remember exactly how far it went. But it was very, very long and encompassed like 10 million people that they were basically ruling.
Okay.
But their headquarters was in Peru. That's where they were based. And so Pizarro shows up with about 170 conquistadors. And these are like these outcast dudes from Western Spain. Like Pizarro was like not of noble birth. He was a bastard kid, like born out of wedlock or whatever. And they had really no hope in Spain, but they were like
nothing to lose.
They had heard about Columbus, and they had heard about Cortez, and Cortez basically going in there and taking over the Aztecs and killing Montezuma. And they're like, there's all this gold and there's all this silver, and we have a right to it. So 170 guys is how many he's got with him, and they've got some horses that they've some of them are on horses. They've got armor, they've got swords, they've got guns, and they've got some cannons, like 4 cannons. And of course, if you've read Guns, Germs, and Steel, as you did at one point, you know that in the Americas they didn't have iron ore that there was in other parts of the country, other parts of the world. So they basically didn't have steel tools yet. So like the Incans basically had like clubs, like wooden clubs with like stone things. That was like their weaponry. But there was a lot of them, and they were a very well-organized army. So you've got this emperor, Atahualpa, who has 80,000 troops. 80,000 troops. And word is beginning to get out about these foreigners showing up on their weird animals, because there were no horses in the Americas.
Uh-huh.
They had llamas, they had alpacas, and you can't ride a llama or an alpaca. They can't hold the weight of a person. So they didn't have any animals that they could ride. They used them as pack animals and for the wool and for meat.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys show up, and they're like, Atahualpa was curious. He was like, who are these? He hears about these guys who have come up to one of their cities that's kind of close to him. And it's like an Incan city that's 4 Incan low building wall type things, and then there's a square in the middle that's like 600 by 600 feet. And so Pizarro wasn't necessarily committed to fighting at that point. He was like, I'm ready to fight, but maybe we can negotiate. All they wanted was all this gold, all this silver. They want to come in and pillage this place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course they want to subjugate the people, because what they were also doing is what Cortez had done is they would take over these people, and then they would basically force, essentially have slaves, of the people that they had conquered. And so he's like, well, Cortez did it. Maybe I can do something like that. So again, about 170 guys.
Monstrously outnumbered.
Yeah. 80,000 Incan troops. Out of curiosity, Atahualpa is like, well, let's go down and meet these guys. It's like, I kind of want to see what they're about. And they come down, and there's a little bit of like, there's this moment where they like stop and they camp outside of the thing, but then like a Spanish guy comes out and like waves them in, basically like, come on in to the thing. And they ended up, 6,000 of the troops come into this square. Basically all that could fit, like the beginning of the army.
Mm-hmm.
And you got the Spanish guys, the conquistadors, all around them in these buildings. They don't know that they're there. The Incans don't know that the Spanish are there.
Oh, okay.
And the Incans have the emperor on this litter, which is like the thing you put on your shoulder and you hold him up. So that's how he got around. Like,
Yeah.
there were dudes who were trained from birth. It was like a line of people that were trained to make his ride as smooth as possible. Like, that was their job. It was like, I hold up the emperor when we travel on the Incan roads, and I know how to make it completely smooth.
Shock absorber.
Shock absorbers. Like, that was their job, and they were the best in the world at it.
Okay.
So they bring him in there, and then a friar,
I'm getting scared.
a Catholic friar, comes out by himself, goes up to Atahualpa and reads this proclamation to him.
Uh-huh.
And I think maybe there was like an interpreter there that like tried to get some of it, but this was very early in the contact, so like the level of what could be perceived and understood is probably very low. But he essentially says, again, this is the mentality that caused basically the conquest of the New World, right? It's like, God has given authority to the Pope. The Pope has given authority to the Spanish king, and the Spanish king has given authority to us to come here and claim this land for Spain and to force you to convert to the one true God. And if you do not convert, you have, basically the wrath of God coming to you through us.
Mm-hmm.
And then he hands him a Bible. And the story goes that Atahualpa looks at the Bible. They didn't have writing. They had a system of knots that they would do for record keeping.
Wow.
But he just looks at it. He's like, what the hell is this? And he throws it on the ground. And then that is the beginning that's when basically shortly thereafter, the Spanish fire the cannons into this crowd. They come out with their armor and their swords and their guns. And the Incans had no concept for what these guys had in their hands.
Explosions.
They said that they had the lightning in their hands or the thunder in their hands, right? That they used that word because and so they didn't even fight. They just tried to get away, right? So at the end of this battle, which was the Battle of Cajamarca, 7,000 Incans have been killed. Do you know how many conquistadors have been killed?
2.
0.
0.
0. Do you know how many were hurt? 0.
Wow. And it was just shock and awe. And so did they kill the emperor, or did he get away?
Pizarro goes up to the emperor. Now, meanwhile, the Spanish are killing the guys who are holding up the litter, and they're being replaced by more guys who keep coming in and holding it up.
Wow.
And then eventually, they reached up and grabbed Atahualpa off of the thing and pulled him down. And then the story is, they made him prisoner. Pizarro actually kept him in his chamber with him. And Atahualpa began to negotiate with them because he was like, all you guys want is gold and silver? It's like they didn't have a system of currency. It was a system of trade, and they didn't see gold and silver as money. Mm-hmm. It was associated with the gold was the sun god, and the silver was the moon god. And it was all this incredible ornate stuff that they would wear, but they didn't value it in the same way. It wasn't like, this is worth this much. Uh-huh. And so they were like, these strange foreigners just want this stuff. And so he said, I will get everyone in, I will get all my people to bring you gold and silver. And he took a thing and marked it on the wall, and he said, I will fill this room up with gold to this point. Because Atahualpa was like, well, if they get what they want, they'll just leave.
Yeah. Of
course.
No.
We all knew the Spanish knew that wasn't going to happen. And eventually Atahualpa knew, but it was too late. They ended up killing him. And, basically it just becomes, it's the typical story of a Western conquest of like broken promises, broken treaties, and slowly just taking all this stuff from people. But the crazy thing is when you're in Lima, really when you're in any city in Peru, you see, first of all, it's like at this point you've got people all on the spectrum, like from a race standpoint. You've got people who like, okay, that person is probably more directly descended from the Incans, and this person looks Spanish, and then there's everything in between in terms of just like the way the features and the way that people look, right? Mm-hmm. Because the cultures are basically just mixed at this point. And there's some weird like racism and colorism that exist along that spectrum, Mm-hmm. But the thing that's crazy and ironic is just how Catholic it is. I mean, South America is like supremely Catholic.
Yeah.
So you got these guys who came in with this God and in this mentality that enabled them to, in their minds, they were justified, right? And they had talked themselves, and this is one of those things that like really bad ideas can make people do really, really bad things. It isn't, and you can rationalize and justify that and be like, well, this is right because my God mandates me to do this, and these people, they're going to die and go to hell anyway. So I need to by force convert them because at least they have. I'm giving them something. I'm giving them God. I'm giving them Jesus. I'm giving them heaven. Mm-hmm. That was the mentality.
And maybe we'll take some stuff in the meantime, like everything,
and become. And these conquistadors became. They were like the oligarchs of the day. They were like so rich and they built these giant estates all over Central and South America because they had all this gold. But anyway, we went to a bunch of cathedrals, and you've got in Cusco, you've got the original Incan walls still in the city, and then you've got the stuff that the Spanish just built on top of it.
Oh,
and then you've got like the Incan palace. And then you've got the Catholic Church right next to it.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm just coming in as a complete outsider reading about the history, but then I'm seeing that here 400 years later, this is what it's like. I go into this store and they're selling all this Jesus stuff, very white Jesus, and this is it's so ironic that like the Spanish came, they took everything. They gave them Jesus, and the thing that they've held on to is Jesus. Is this idea, like the power of religious philosophy to like grab hold of you and just take a hold of you, even if it's like, oh no, all that was done, all that evil was done in this name, and that philosophy enabled them to do that. But because I was asking one of our guides about, because he was saying that. This is a very Catholic country. And the old religions, the old Incan religions and the old nature religions are just sort of like these historical artifacts. He said, but all of the tourism that we've had over the past couple of decades has caused all of us to get familiarized with our past and our roots. And some of those traditions have actually resurged a little bit. But it's very weird because it's all mixed together.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, we know we worship the God of this that's in the earth, that's in the mountain, but we also worship Jesus at the same time. They're kind of mixing the two. But I just found it so fascinating that like when you replay the story and then if you were go back to that time and you were to fast forward and you were to tell Atahualpa, like these guys who say they only want your gold, they're going to take everything. And you know what? You're going to be worshiping their God. Your people will be worshiping their God 400 years.
But you'll get a really sweet gift shop out of it.
Right. Yeah. So
that would be quite a shock.
It was heavy. Man.
I mean, it was a shock. It probably couldn't have been more of a shock than what it already was. In one sense, it's like you were already at this point where it's like you got these different type of people riding these different type of animals, exploding these fire from their hands, and then you fast forward to the gift shop and it's like, okay, I was already feeling that. It's probably no different. And that's why the Guns, Germs, and Steel is such a, it's still a textbook. I will warn you.
It's a textbook.
It's a textbook.
But the thing that it did for me is I think
it's kind of fun to connect the dots. And
growing up where we grew up,
biggest picture
with some of the things that we were taught, there's a lot of very racist assumptions that are built into why things are the way that they are.
Right.
The reason that things ended up the way that they ended up, the reason that one culture won out over the other culture. Like the things that we were taught was basically a bunch of racist ideas of why that happened. And then when you see that, well, it was, in one sense, it was inevitable. It was basically the way that these cultures were separated tens of thousands of years ago, and the places that they went to, the environments that they developed in determined where they would be at technologically when they met again.
Yeah.
And where they would be philosophically when they met again. And so it's but again, people are just like, well, the reason that happened is because these people were white. That's basically what you're kind of, that's the underlying assumption that you're kind of sold in certain places on Earth.
So that book does a good job of that. Matter of fact, I just finished reading. I did the audiobook of. It's a book called The Cretaceous Past, and it's by the Chinese author, the hard science fiction author, Xijing Liu, I think is his name, who also did the show that came out on
The Three Body Problem.
Three Body Problem. So I was in the Three Body Problem. And this is a much shorter one novel, and if you're into an alternate history of the Cretaceous period that involves dinosaurs like evolving basically consciousness and through cooperation with ants. Ants and dinosaurs basically derive and create their own global civilization. That kind of has some guns, germs, and steel kind of vibes to it. Like the scope and the pace at which the civilization moves and you move through it. It's a pretty short read. So it's like you kind of get the dinosaur ant alliance version of human cultural civilization.
So it's pretty interesting. Something I'd be into. I got bogged down in the second Three Body Problem book.
My critique of Cretaceous Past is that it's not as much character and story. There's some character, but it's mostly history, like a fake history that's based on a lot of the principles of Guns, Germs, and Steel. So you might like it, but it's almost like it's a soft introductory to all of those type of concepts. So it makes me think about it. But yeah, I finished it. Of course, I had a long drive back, so I was able to finish it. So you would recommend going, not just for Jenna, who's dreamt of it since she was in second grade.
Yeah, I think it's it's a wonderful trip.
There's this great action adventure.
Yeah, and the one thing I haven't talked about
hiking heights
is the food.
Dogs.
The food
was great.
I love Shepard and I were huge fans of Peruvian food before. We go to Peruvian restaurants here in town with like ceviche is probably Shepard's favorite food. And so there's like a bunch of ceviche, and then when you get to the mountains, there's trout ceviche from the river, which was really good.
Huh.
I mean, the alpaca and the guinea pig is sort of like do it if you want to have the cultural experience, but I think that like the ceviche and then like the big corn, like the Inca corn.
Oh yeah,
that comes both hard and soft.
You talking about corn nuts?
It's basically the original corn nuts.
Original corn nuts?
I just absolutely love that stuff. And then I'm gonna shout out this. If you happen to be going to these places, I'm gonna shout out a few restaurants because we had a great experience. So there's a little town, Urubamba, which is in the Sacred Valley. There's not a lot going on there, but there is this African, Indian, Peruvian fusion restaurant called Kampu, Kampu, and the chef, Eduardo, was a character and a half. I wanted to get a video of him.
So you met him and you ate his food and it was great.
Well, it was like a well-reviewed place and it seemed interesting and we went there and there was, it basically was the end of the rainy season, so it's not, Peru is very busy during the summer because it's the winter, but it's the dry season.
Okay.
So our summer's their winter, but it's dry. And that's when people do most of like the big treks or they like hike the Incan Trail. You can hike for 4 days and 3 nights on the old actual cobblestone Incan Trail that the Incans built. They built this incredible trail all throughout the Andes Mountains that connected all the fortresses and Machu Picchu and everything else to everything else. and you can like hike, and you can do like there's Sherpas that carry all the camping stuff and the food and everything. That's what their job is, to carry all that. I saw a bunch of them walking, and then there's all the tourists who have like their little day pack who are just walking. And you walk for like 4 days, and then you camp at these nice camps.
That's cool.
So Shepard kind of wants to go back and do that, but he's also like, but we might need to go somewhere else because, you know.
That's cool, though.
But Campu, incredible restaurant. Crazy fusion. Like I said, African, Peruvian, Indian. Just like great curry. And there's a lot of fusion restaurants. In Cusco, we went to a Japanese Peruvian, like sushi, Peruvian sushi fusion restaurant called Limo, which was the best meal that we had the whole time. And then the next night we went to a place called Kion, which was a Chinese Peruvian. So they have Chinese Peruvian fusion because there was a bunch of Chinese people that came into Peru, and they created a cuisine called chifa, which is basically Chinese and Peruvian fusion. So basically you can get like Peruvian dim sum.
What?
And so we got that the second night in Cusco. I mean, we had some really good food. Recommend all those places if you're going to. And of course, any Peruvian restaurant. There's so many just great Peruvian restaurants where you get ceviche, Inca corn, alpaca. We had an alpaca pizza. Cuy, if you want that. There's plenty of those places too. Food was great.
Sounds like a success.
It was.
You conquered some fears.
Yeah.
You convinced your son that there's a limit to the amount of time he can spend with you. These are all good things.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's got to branch out. Like, he now knows he's got to find a life elsewhere. He don't want to live with you forever. That's a really good thing to teach a kid.
I think he already knew that. I think he's ready for independence right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, maybe I have to go, Jenna. Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe me and you and my family have to go to Peru now.
When you mentioned that zipline and started talking, I was like, I know exactly what that is.
Via Ferrata. I was thinking about doing that type of thing with our college buddies, and like you can do that in Colorado and stuff too.
I would do it now that I've done it.
Okay. Well, it ain't gonna be like that. It won't be that amazing.
You don't think so?
In Colorado, I mean,
the view won't be as crazy.
Yeah, but it'll probably be awesome. All right. That's it. We got some adventures under our belt. I have to save my bike story for another time, but okay. I'll get back to it. Yeah. Glad you're back, man. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing our stuff.
Okay, we'll keep doing it.
All right, and we'll keep doing this, and we'll talk to you next week. We had to roll again because I just remember one thing. How much water you still got in your mug? Look at this. Look, this is his
Hold
mug.
on.
This is my mug. Look.
Hold on, we're not done. We have to do the ads.
Look at all that water.
Oh, come on. That was like that much water, and I wanted to drink it.
Was this much. It was that much water. Like, this is how much water I poured him, and it's still in there.
Hold on. You're bad at math because it had this much left, which is what you poured me originally. I had that much in there. I drank that much, and I wasn't done with it.
You were done.
If I had this much in,
we had cut.
We got to do the ads. I always finish the water during the ads.
Well, you can finish the water during the ads, but
you came out of your cup now.
Well, it came out of your cup first. I drank all my water. It's all gone. You better believe it. I was watching your water the whole time, and I was like, I'm thirsty. I'm going to drink.
There's hardly any in there.
I hope he doesn't notice that I'm drinking because I don't want to remind him.
My whole
something
pinky
that
is
he
in
will
there,
not
and it's
do.
not even wet. Look at that. Whole pinky's in there, and I'm still not touching the water.
Full of water.
No, it's not. It's right at the bottom.
I'm just saying. I know what you need, man. Trust me.
This is how much you put in originally.
You would have been exactly to the bottom.
No, because you filled it to the top. You think 75% and 25% are equal? Do I need
Don't
to make
fool me with your numbers.
Do I need a pie chart?
I missed having you both here.
Okay. All right. Now we're actually at the end.
Okay.
Now that I've proven my point.
Not quite.
Hey, Rhett and Link. This is Kayana. Just wanted to say that I am currently in labor for my home birth, listening to Ear Biscuits. Just thought that was interesting that I'm choosing y'all to spend this intimate time with. But yeah, love you guys. Thank you.